Renkai's voice carried across the communication network to every ship in the Zolthari war fleet. Warriors on dozens of vessels stopped what they were doing and listened. They had expected to hear a report confirming human weakness. They had expected the signal to begin the invasion. Instead, they heard something that no Zolthari had ever said before. "Brothers and sisters of the hunt," Renkai began. "I was sent to this sector to trap humans and prove their inferiority. I set the trap exactly as our strategists designed it. I waited in that cage, playing the role of victim, expecting to capture frightened prey that would confirm everything we believed about this new species." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle across the fleet. The trap worked perfectly. 2 humans came to investigate. They found me in the containment cell. And then something happened that I still cannot fully explain. They recognized the trap for what it was. They understood that I was the hunter, not the prisoner. Every instinct should have told them to run. Every rational calculation said that approaching me meant death. Renkai looked at Daniel and Kira, standing together on the bridge of their small salvage ship. But they did not run. They opened the cage and freed me. When I asked them why, the human captain said something that changed the way I see the universe. He said that leaving someone in a cage is wrong, even if that someone might kill you. He said that some choices define who a person is, and he chose compassion over survival. The communication channels remained silent. Across the fleet, warriors listened with growing confusion and uncertainty. I have been a hunter for 20 years. I have killed creatures on 100 worlds. I have never questioned the way of predation that defines our civilization. But today, I witnessed something that our training never prepared me for. I saw prey that refused to act like prey. I saw weakness that turned out to be strength. I saw a creature smaller and weaker than myself teach me something about honor that I had never learned from my own people. High Commander Sylveth watched from his ship, his expression unreadable. The other officers on his bridge exchanged nervous glances, uncertain how to respond to what they were hearing. "The humans are not easy prey," Renkai continued. "They are not simple creatures driven only by fear and survival. They are something far more dangerous and far more valuable than we ever imagined. They are a species that can choose mercy when hatred would be easier. They are a species that can see worth in their enemies. And they are a species that broke the oldest rule of the hunt. They saved the predator." Renkai's voice grew stronger, filled with conviction that seemed to surprise even himself. "I know what will happen when I finish speaking. I will be declared a traitor. My name will be erased from our histories. I will lose everything that once gave my life meaning. But I cannot stay silent about what I have witnessed. I cannot allow a war to begin based on assumptions that I know are false. If my exile is the price of truth, then I will pay it gladly." He turned to face the holographic image of High Commander Sylveth. "The choice now belongs to you, High Commander. To all of you. You can destroy the ship and pretend that my testimony never happened. You can begin the invasion and attempt to conquer a species that will never stop fighting for each other. Or you can consider the possibility that our ancient ways are not the only path forward." Sylveth remained motionless for a long moment. The entire fleet waited for his response. Then, slowly voices began to emerge from the communication channels. Captains from other ships, speaking quietly at first, then with growing confidence. "The hunter's testimony deserves consideration," one said. "We came here expecting simple prey," said another. "This is not what we prepared for. Our warriors need to understand what we would be fighting against," a third voice added. "This is not a weakness to be exploited. This is something new." Sylveth raised his hand, silencing the growing chorus of uncertainty. His eyes locked onto Daniel through the holographic display. "You," he said. "You and Captain. You caused all of this. You walked into a trap, knowing it was a trap. You freed a hunter who should have killed you. And now you stand there watching your enemy tear itself apart because of your impossible choices. Daniel stepped forward. I did not come here looking for war, High Commander. I came here because I heard a distress signal, and I do not ignore calls for help. Everything that happened after that was just me being human. Just being human? Sylveth repeated slowly. A phrase that now carries more meaning than I ever expected. The old warrior was silent for a long moment. Daniel could see him weighing options, calculating outcomes, processing information that contradicted everything his civilization had taught him to believe. I will not attack your ship today, Sylveth said finally. Not because I believe you are right. Not because I have changed my mind about humans. But because I refuse to make a decision of this magnitude based on incomplete information. He turned to address his fleet. All vessels, stand down weapons. We return to Zoltary space to consult with the Dominion Council. This matter requires consideration beyond my authority. The tension on the bridge of Daniel's ship eased slightly. It was not victory, but it was not death either. It was something far more important. It was a chance. Sylveth looked at Renkai one final time. You are exiled from the Dominion, as I promised. Your name will be removed from our records. But I will also ensure that your testimony is preserved and presented to the Council. What happens after that is beyond my control. Renkai bowed his head. That is all I can ask, High Commander. The holographic display flickered and disappeared. Through the viewport, Daniel watched the Zoltary warships turn and accelerate away. Disappearing into the darkness of space, Kira let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Did that actually just happen? Did we actually survive? Daniel nodded slowly, still processing everything. We survived. For now. Renkai stood alone near the viewport, watching the last traces of his people's ships fade from sight. He had lost everything. His honor, his name, his place among his people. And yet, somehow, he did not feel defeated. Daniel walked to stand beside him. What will you do now? Renkai was silent for a moment. I do not know. I am no longer Zoltary in any meaningful sense. But I am not human either. I am something in between. Something new. You could stay with us, Daniel offered. Help us understand your people better. Help them understand us. Be a bridge between two worlds that have never known each other before. Renkai looked at him with an expression that might have been gratitude. You would trust me. After everything I was sent here to do? You did not do it, Daniel said. That is what matters. Besides, someone needs to teach these humans how to spot Zoltary traps. Apparently, we are not very good at running away from danger. A sound emerged from Renkai that took Daniel a moment to recognize. It was laughter. Rough and unfamiliar, but unmistakably laughter. You are a strange species, Daniel Cole. You walk into traps on purpose. You free hunters who should kill you. You laugh in the face of enemies who could destroy your entire civilization. I do not understand you, but perhaps that is exactly why I should stay. The salvage ship turned and began its journey home. Three beings stood together on the bridge, looking out at the stars. A human captain who believed in doing the right thing. A communications officer who saw possibilities where others saw only danger. And an alien warrior who had lost everything he once valued and gained something he never expected. Behind them, a war had been postponed. Ahead of them, a future waited that neither species could have imagined. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the first fragile threads of understanding began to weave themselves between predator and prey. Renkai thought about the trap he had set. He thought about how perfectly it had worked, and how completely its purpose had failed. The humans had not been broken by his cage. They had broken the cage itself, and in doing so, they had shown him something that his people had never understood. The greatest strength was not the ability to dominate others. It was the ability to choose connection over conquest, mercy over destruction, hope over fear. The humans had broken the trap to show him there was never a need for one in the first place. And perhaps, in time, his people would learn to believe that too. High Commander Sylveth stared at Ren-Kai through the holographic display with an expression that shifted from surprise to cold fury. The silence stretched between them like a blade waiting to fall. "Repeat what you just said," Sylveth commanded. Ren-Kai did not flinch. "I will not give you the signal, High Commander. The invasion cannot proceed based on the information I was sent to gather. You dare defy a direct order from the Dominion Council? You dare refuse your sacred duty as a hunter?" "I am not refusing my duty," Ren-Kai said. "I am fulfilling it. My mission was to study humans and determine whether they pose a threat to our people. I have studied them. I have learned things that our strategists never anticipated. And based on what I have learned, I believe that attacking humanity would be a catastrophic mistake." Sylveth's claws extended from his fingertips, a sign of aggression that every Zoltari understood. "You have been corrupted. The prey has somehow weakened your mind. This is exactly why we do not allow prolonged contact with inferior species." "They are not inferior," Ren-Kai said. "That is precisely what I am trying to tell you. Everything we believed about humans was wrong. Everything we believed about humans was wrong." Daniel stepped forward, placing himself beside Ren-Kai in view of the holographic display. The High Commander's eyes shifted to him, and Daniel felt the full weight of that predatory gaze. It was like standing in front of a storm that could destroy everything in its path. "High Commander Sylveth," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady. "My name is Daniel Cole. I am the captain of this vessel. I would like to speak on behalf of humanity." Sylveth made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been disgust. "The prey wishes to speak? How amusing. What could you possibly say that would interest me, little creature?" "I could explain why your hunter has changed his mind," Daniel said. "I could help you understand what happened on that station. But only if you are willing to listen. I do not listen to prey. I hunt prey. I consume prey. That is the natural order of things. And yet here you are, talking to me instead of attacking. If I were truly just prey, you would not bother with conversation. You would simply destroy my ship and be done with it. The fact that you are still listening means some part of you wants to understand." Sylveth's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Daniel thought the High Commander would order the attack simply to prove a point. But instead, the old warrior remained still, watching Daniel with an intensity that felt like a physical force. "Speak then," Sylveth said finally. "Amuse me with your words before I end your existence." Daniel took a breath and chose his next words carefully. "Your people sent Ren-Kai to set a trap for humans. The trap was designed to prove that we are weak, easily manipulated, driven purely by survival instincts. But the trap revealed something different. And what did it reveal? It revealed that humans do not follow the rules you expect. We found the trap. We recognized it for what it was. We knew that Ren-Kai was the hunter, not the prisoner. Every logical instinct told us to run away and save ourselves. But we did not run. We opened the cage and freed him anyway." Sylveth tilted his head, a gesture of confusion that mirrored what Ren-Kai had done earlier. "Why? Why would any creature choose death over survival?" "Because survival is not the only thing that matters to us," Daniel said. "Because leaving someone in a cage felt wrong, even if that someone was dangerous. Because we believe that compassion is more important than self-preservation." "Compassion is weakness," Sylveth said. "It gets creatures killed." "Sometimes it does," Daniel agreed. "And sometimes it creates something stronger than fear or hatred ever could." Sometimes it turns an enemy into an ally. Sometimes it changes the entire nature of a conflict. He gestured toward Renkai. Your hunter came to prove that humans are easy prey. Instead, he discovered that we are something far more complex. We can be fierce when we need to be. We can fight and kill and survive against terrible odds. But we can also show mercy to our enemies. We can choose peace when war would be easier. We can see value in creatures that are different from us. Sylveth was silent for a long moment. The other officers on his bridge shifted nervously, waiting for their commander's response. You speak well for a prey creature, Sylveth said finally. But words do not change the fundamental truth. The Zolthari are hunters. Humans are expanding into our territory. If we do not stop you now, you will eventually become a threat that we cannot control. Perhaps, Daniel said. Or perhaps we could become something better. Partners instead of enemies. Allies instead of prey. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers that neither of our species can face alone. Would it not be wiser to work together than to destroy each other? Sylveth's expression hardened. You speak of partnership, but you do not understand what you are asking. The Zolthari have never allied with a prey species. Our entire civilization would need to change to accept such a concept. Our hunters would need to see humans as equals. Our leaders would need to abandon thousands of years of tradition. Yes, Daniel said simply. That is exactly what I am asking. The High Commander stared at him for a long moment, and then turned his attention back to Vrinkai. You have forced me into an impossible position, Hunter. If I accept what you are saying, I betray everything our people stand for. If I reject it, I attack a species that has shown qualities we have never encountered before. Either choice brings consequences that will echo through history. Vrinkai stepped forward. Then let history record the truth, High Commander. Let our people hear what I witnessed. Let them decide for themselves what it means. You want to address the fleet? Sylveth asked, his voice dangerous. I want to give my testimony. That was always my mission. To observe and report. I have observed something unprecedented. Let me report it to everyone, not just you. Sylveth's claws clicked together in agitation. The decision he faced was enormous, and Daniel could see the conflict playing out behind those cold predator eyes. Very well, Sylveth said finally. Speak to the fleet. Tell them what you witnessed. But know this, Vrinkai. When you finish, I will declare you a traitor to the Dominion. Your name will be erased from our histories. You will be exiled from everything you have ever known. I understand, Renkai said quietly. And the humans will die alongside you. I will not allow this infection of weakness to spread to our warriors. Daniel felt his heart sink, but he did not step back. He had known from the beginning that this moment might come. He had made his choices with full knowledge of what they might cost. Vrinkai turned to face a secondary display that would broadcast to every ship in the fleet. He straightened his posture and prepared to speak the words that would end his life as a Zolthari warrior. But perhaps, just perhaps, those same words might save millions of lives on both sides of a war that had not yet begun. He opened his mouth and began to speak. The salvage ship moved through space at maximum speed, but Daniel knew it would not be fast enough. Zolthari vessels were built for hunting, and they could cross star systems in the time it took his old ship to reach the next waypoint. If the war fleet decided to come for them, there would be nowhere to hide. Commander Reese Dalton's voice crackled through the communication system. He was stationed on a patrol frigate at the edge of the neutral corridor, monitoring traffic and watching for threats. His tone was tense and urgent. Cole, I need you to explain what is happening. Our sensors are showing 3 Zolthari warships moving in your direction. That is more firepower than we have seen in this sector in years. What did you get yourself into? Daniel looked at Vrinkai, who stood silently in the corner of the bridge. The alien warrior had not moved since they left the station. He seemed lost in thought, processing the decision he had made and the consequences that would follow. "It is a long story, Commander," Daniel said. "The short version is that we stumbled into a Zolthari trap designed to test human responses. We found the hunter they left behind, and we let him go." There was a pause on the other end of the communication. "You let him go?" "Cole, the Zolthari are the most dangerous predators in known space. Why would you do something that foolish?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Daniel said simply. Another pause. "You are either the bravest man I have ever met or the stupidest." "Maybe both. The fleet is mobilizing a response, but we cannot get there in time. You are on your own for now." The communication ended, and silence filled the bridge. Kira sat at the navigation console, plotting possible escape routes that they all knew would not work. Renkai finally moved, walking to stand beside Daniel at the main viewport. "Your commander thinks you are foolish," Renkai said. "He's probably right," Daniel admitted. "And yet you do not regret your choice." Daniel shook his head. "No, I meant what I said before. Leaving someone in a cage is wrong. Even if it costs me, I would make the same choice again." Renkai studied him with those glowing orange eyes. "You are a strange creature, Daniel Cole. Everything about you contradicts what I was taught about prey species. You should be running. You should be begging for mercy. Instead, you stand here talking to me as if we are equals. Are we not?" Daniel asked. The question seemed to catch Renkai off guard. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. For a long moment, he simply stared at Daniel, processing something that his training and instincts had no answer for. Kira turned from her console. "Renkai, can I ask you something? Your commanders sent you to study humans. They wanted evidence that we are weak. But what if you gave them different evidence instead?" "What do you mean?" "You said you would not send the signal to start the invasion. But what if you sent a different message? What if you told your people what you actually learned about humans? Not what they expected to hear, but the truth?" Renkai was quiet for a moment. "The truth is complicated. My people value strength above all things. We respect power and dominance. What you call compassion, we see as weakness. What you call mercy, we see as foolishness. If I tell them that humans freed me instead of fleeing, they will not understand it the way you do." "Then help them understand," Daniel said. "You are one of their hunters. You have seen things they have not seen. Your voice carries weight among your people. Use it. They will call me a traitor," Renkai said. "They will say that the humans corrupted me somehow, that I have been weakened by contact with prey species. My honor will be destroyed. My name will become a curse among my people." Daniel nodded slowly. "Probably. Is that enough to stop you?" Renkai looked at him with an expression that mixed frustration with something like admiration. "You ask impossible questions, human. You push me toward choices that will destroy everything I have known. And yet, you do it without threats, without force. You simply stand there and expect me to do what is right." "I do not expect anything," Daniel said. "I just believe that you are capable of more than your people taught you to be. You came here as a hunter. You set a trap and waited for victims. But when the trap worked, you did not act like a predator. You asked questions. You listened to answers. You chose not to kill us when killing would have been easy." Kira stood up from her console and walked closer to Renkai. "You are already different from what your commanders expected. The question is whether you are brave enough to show them that difference." Renkai looked between the two humans. They were small and fragile compared to him. He could kill them both in seconds if he wanted to. But they stood before him without fear, without submission, treating him as something more than a predator, and themselves as something more than prey. It was the strangest thing he had ever experienced. "My people do not change easily," Renkai said. "We've been hunters for thousands of years. Our entire civilization is built on the concept of dominance and predation. What you are asking me to do is challenge everything we believe about ourselves." "Change is hard," Daniel agreed. "But it is not impossible. Humans have changed many times throughout our history. We have been cruel and kind, savage and civilized, destroyers and builders. We learned that we could be more than our instincts told us to be. Maybe your people can learn that too." An alarm sounded on the console. Kira rushed back to check the display, and her face went pale. "The Zolthari ships are here," she said. 3 warships, weapons powered. They are surrounding us." Renkai straightened his posture and took a deep breath. The moment of decision had arrived faster than any of them expected. "Open a channel to the lead ship," he said. "I will speak to them." Daniel nodded and activated the communication system. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the image of another Zolthari warrior. This one was older than Renkai, with scars across his face and cold authority in his eyes. His name was High Commander Sylveth, and he was the leader of the war fleet. "Renkai," Sylveth said, his voice sharp with command. "Your mission timer has expired. We expected your signal hours ago. Report your status and confirm that the prey is ready for harvest." Renkai looked at Daniel and Kira one more time. Then he turned to face the hologram of his commander. "High Commander," he said slowly, "I have a report to give. But it is not the one you are expecting." Sylveth's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, Hunter." Renkai squared his shoulders and prepared to say words that would change his life forever. "The humans are not what we believe them to be, and I will not give you the signal you are waiting for." The silence that followed was heavier than any Daniel had ever experienced. The Zolthari warrior stood motionless in the doorway of his cell. His orange eyes never left Daniel's face, and the silence between them was thick enough to cut. Kira had her hand on her sidearm, though they both knew that a small pistol would do nothing against a creature like this. If the Zolthari wanted them dead, they would be dead before she could even draw the weapon. But the alien did not attack. He simply watched them with that strange, patient gaze. "You knew," the Zolthari said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "You knew this was a trap. I saw it in your eyes when you looked at the restraints. You understood what I was." Daniel nodded slowly. "I had a pretty good idea, yes. Then why did you open the cage?" It was a simple question, but the way the Zolthari asked it carried weight. There was genuine confusion in his voice, as if Daniel had done something that broke all the rules he understood about the universe. "Because leaving someone in a cage is wrong," Daniel said. "Even if that someone might kill me for letting them out." The Zolthari was silent for a long moment. His head tilted to one side, then the other, like a predator trying to understand something new and unexpected. Finally, he stepped out of the cell completely and moved past the 2 humans. He walked toward the corridor that led back to the docking bay, then stopped and turned. "Come," he said. "We will talk on your ship. This place smells of old suffering, and I do not wish to remain here." Daniel and Kira exchanged glances. Following a Zolthari warrior anywhere seemed like a bad idea, but staying in the abandoned station seemed worse. They walked behind him through the dark corridors, watching his massive form move with a grace that should have been impossible for something so large. They reached the salvage ship without incident. The Zolthari had to duck his head to fit through the airlock, and he looked almost comical standing in the small cargo bay, like a giant forced into a dollhouse. But there was nothing funny about the intensity in his eyes as he turned to face them. "My name is Renkai," he said. "I am a hunter of the Zolthari Dominion, and I was placed on that station to hunt you." Kira's hand moved toward her weapon again, but Daniel raised his hand to stop her. Hunt us specifically? He asked. Or hunt humans in general? Humans in general, Renkai said. Your species is new to this region of space. You have been expanding into territories that border Zolthari hunting grounds. My commanders wanted to understand what kind of threat you represent. So they sent you to capture humans for study, Daniel said. Renkai nodded. The trap was designed to attract ships like yours. Small vessels with small crews, far from military protection. I was to capture the crew alive, study their responses to fear and pain, and determine whether humans were worthy of respect or merely easy prey. Kira stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. And what did you decide? Are we easy prey? Renkai looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. The cold predator gaze softened into something almost like uncertainty. I do not know anymore, he admitted. The trap worked perfectly. You came to the station. You found me in the cell. Everything happened exactly as my commanders planned. But then you did something that made no sense. We opened the cage, Daniel said. Yes, you knew the trap was false. You knew I was the hunter, not the hunted. Any rational creature would have run. Any species with basic survival instincts would have fled and never looked back. But you chose to free me anyway. Renkai shook his head slowly. In all my years of hunting, I have never seen prey behave this way. I do not understand it. Daniel leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. Maybe that is because you were thinking about it wrong. You keep calling us prey, but we do not see ourselves that way. You are smaller than us, weaker, slower. Your senses are dull compared to ours. By every measure that matters in the hunt, you are prey. And yet here we are, Daniel said, standing in my ship, having a conversation, instead of lying dead on that station floor. Does that not tell you something? Renkai was silent. His claws clicked together slowly, a nervous habit that seemed strange on such a powerful creature. Kira spoke up, her voice calmer now. You wanted to study how humans respond to fear. Well, here is your answer. Yes, we feel fear. Daniel was afraid when he opened that cage. I was afraid too. But fear does not control us. We can choose to act despite it. Why? Renkai asked. Why would you risk your lives for a stranger? For an enemy? Because we have learned something that your people might not understand yet, Daniel said. We have learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. That mercy can create allies where cruelty creates only enemies. Humans have been predators and prey throughout our history. We have hunted and been hunted. And we learned that the ones who survived longest were not the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones who worked together, who helped each other, who refused to leave their companions behind. Renkai stared at him with an expression that was difficult to read. The concepts Daniel described seemed foreign to him, like words from a language he had never heard. My mission was to prove that humans are weak, Renkai said slowly. To justify a preemptive strike against your species before you become a threat to Zolthari territory. I was supposed to return with evidence that you are cowards, easily broken, unworthy of respect. And now? Daniel asked. Renkai looked down at his own claws, then back up at the two humans standing before him. Now I have a problem, he said, because everything I have seen suggests the opposite. You are not weak. You are something far more dangerous than that. You are unpredictable. You do not follow the rules of the hunt. And that makes you the most terrifying prey I have ever encountered. A soft alarm beeped on the console. Kira moved to check it, and her face went pale. Daniel, we have a problem. A military channel just activated. Commander Reese Dalton from the patrol frigate is hailing us. He says Zolthari vessels have been detected moving toward the neutral corridor. Daniel looked at Renkai. Your people? My war fleet, Renkai confirmed. They are waiting for my signal. When I confirm that humans are weak and ready for conquest, they will begin the invasion. The room fell silent. Daniel felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Millions of lives hung in the balance, and the decision of what happened next rested on the alien warrior standing in his cargo bay. So what are you going to do? Daniel asked quietly. Renkai closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was something new in his gaze. Something that looked almost like hope. I will not send the signal, he said. Not today. Perhaps not ever. And with those words, everything changed once more. The salvage ship drifted through the empty darkness of the neutral corridor. Daniel Cole sat in the captain's chair and watched the scanner display with tired eyes. He had been searching for 2 days now, following a faint distress signal that kept appearing and disappearing like a ghost. His ship was old and small, built for recovering lost cargo and abandoned equipment from dead stations. It was not built for adventure, and Daniel was not looking for one. Kira Lawson stood at the communications console, her fingers moving across the controls. She was younger than Daniel by almost 20 years, but she had sharp instincts and a talent for reading situations that most people missed. She had joined his crew 6 months ago, and Daniel had learned to trust her judgment. The signal is getting stronger, Kira said. We are close now. Daniel leaned forward and looked at the display. A dark shape appeared on the screen, floating in the void like a dead whale. It was an orbital station, old and abandoned, with no lights and no signs of life. That is a Syndicate station, Daniel said quietly. Kira turned to look at him. The Syndicate was a criminal network that operated across dozens of star systems. They dealt in stolen goods, illegal weapons, and worst of all, trafficking of sentient species. The Galactic Council had shut down most of their operations years ago, but some of their stations still floated in forgotten corners of space. The signal is coming from inside, Kira said. Someone is still alive in there. Daniel stared at the dark station. Every instinct told him to turn around and leave. Syndicate stations were dangerous places, filled with old traps and automated defenses. But the distress signal kept pulsing, weak and desperate, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. We go in, Daniel said. But we stay careful. They docked at an old airlock on the station's lower section. The metal was rusted and the seals were weak, but they held. Daniel and Kira moved through the dark corridors with flashlights in their hands. The air was cold and stale, and their footsteps echoed against the walls. The station was dead. Control panels were dark. Power lines hung from the ceiling like dead vines, and dust covered everything. But as they moved deeper, they began to see signs of what the station had been used for. Empty cages lined the walls of one room, large enough to hold creatures of many sizes. Chains hung from hooks in the ceiling. Dark stains covered the floor. This was a holding facility, Kira whispered. They kept prisoners here before selling them. Daniel felt his stomach turn. He had heard stories about places like this, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. The suffering that had happened in these rooms was almost visible, like a shadow that refused to fade. They followed the signal deeper into the station, past more empty cells and abandoned equipment. Finally, they reached a large room at the center of the facility. And there, in a containment cell made of thick glass and metal bars, they found the source of the signal dot. It was a Zoltari warrior. Daniel stopped and felt his breath catch in his throat. The Zoltari were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest hunters in existence. They were tall and powerful, with bodies built for speed and strength. Their skin was dark gray, covered in natural armor plating, and their eyes glowed with a soft orange light. They had claws that could tear through metal and reflexes faster than any human could match. This Zoltari sat in the corner of the cell, his head lowered and his body still. Restraints were locked around his wrists and ankles, connecting him to the wall with thick chains. He looked weak and defeated, like a wild animal that had finally given up. "How is this possible?" Kira asked. "The Zolthari are apex predators. How did the Syndicate capture one of them?" Daniel did not answer. He was staring at the restraints, and something was bothering him. He'd seen Syndicate equipment before. He knew how strong their containment systems were. But these restraints were old models, outdated by at least 15 years. They were designed to hold species much weaker than the Zolthari. "Those chains would not hold him," Daniel said slowly. "A Zolthari could break those in seconds." Kira looked at the restraints, and then at the warrior in the cell. Her eyes widened as understanding dawned on her face. "This is wrong," she said. "This whole thing is wrong." The Zolthari lifted his head. His orange eyes focused on the two humans standing outside his cell, and Daniel saw something in that gaze that made his blood run cold. There was no fear in those eyes. There was no desperation. There was only patience, like a spider watching insects walk toward its web. "He is not a prisoner," Kira said. "He is bait." Daniel understood now. The distress signal, the abandoned station, the weak restraints. It was all designed to lure someone in. The Syndicate had not captured this Zolthari. Someone had placed him here deliberately, waiting for victims to come and try to rescue him. This was a trap. And they had walked right into it. Daniel looked at the Zolthari warrior. The alien stared back at him, unmoving, waiting to see what the humans would do. The smart choice was obvious. They should turn around, return to their ship, and leave this place forever. They should report the station to the authorities and let someone else deal with it. But Daniel kept thinking about those empty cages. He kept thinking about all the victims who had suffered in this place, all the lives that had been destroyed by cruelty and greed. And he thought about what it meant to leave someone in a cage, even if that someone was dangerous. "Open the cell," Daniel said. Kira stared at him. "Daniel, are you insane?" "He will kill us." "Maybe," Daniel said. "But I'm not leaving anyone in a cage. Not here. Not in a place like this." He walked to the control panel beside the cell. The Zolthari watched him approach, his orange eyes tracking every movement. Daniel could feel the alien's gaze like a physical weight on his shoulders. He knew he might be making the worst decision of his life. He knew this could end with both of them dead. But he also knew that some choices defined who a person was. And Daniel Cole was not the kind of man who left suffering creatures behind, even when helping them might cost him everything. He pressed the release button. The cell door slid open with a soft hiss. The restraints clicked and fell away from the Zolthari's wrists and ankles. The warrior rose to his full height, towering over both humans. His muscles flexed beneath his armored skin, and his claws extended from his fingertips. He was free now, and there was nothing stopping him from killing them both. Daniel stood his ground and met the alien's eyes. "Well," he said quietly, "here we are." The Zolthari tilted his head, studying Daniel with an expression that might have been curiosity or might have been hunger. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility and danger, and in that moment, everything began to change.